Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bounty Hunt, a UTD Network podcast where we hunt down all the extra content in the Star Wars universe. I'm your host, Eric Eilerson, and joining me on this new season of our show is the full cast and crew in a bunch of different time zones. Starting off, the man who is beginning his day talking about Cassian Andor, Dr. Corey Helton. What's up, dude?
Hello. Doing good. Excited to chat about Andor. I am still in Kauai. I'll be here for another week, next week, and then I'm coming home. But Andor, I got to watch it on a 27-inch TV, and I'm excited to talk about all the stuff that I probably couldn't see and miss. So, I'm here for it.
That's always the best. Absolutely. Next up, the man who's in a different time zone, but I hope watched it on a slightly bigger TV. Dr. Charles Hankel, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon. It's been a beautiful weekend so far, and I'm so happy to be back on Bounty Hunt. There are no rules, remember, on Bounty Hunt. We're just hanging out, having a good time, talking about, quite frankly, a very good show.
Wow. Strong praise from Charles to start off. No spoilers, guys. Quite frankly, a very good show. Next up, we have, quite frankly, a very good man. It's Wes Jenkins.
What's going on, everyone? I had put off watching. Everybody apparently watched it on Wednesday. I didn't watch it till Friday, so I gave myself 2 extra days to kind of stay away from Twitter. But I didn't spoil myself, and I'm glad I didn't. It's super good. It's super different. So I'm excited to talk about what y'all's thoughts are compared to the other shows.
Absolutely. So if you are new to Bounty Hunt, like I said, this is the show where we talk about everything not book related like we do on our main shows. We're going through all the Disney Plus shows. Today, we're going through Andor episodes 1, 2, and 3. They all dropped on premiere day. This is a full spoiler show. So how this will work, we're going to go through a recap of all 3 episodes, and then we're going to talk about things we liked. And because it's the beginning of Andor, we're going to talk about some characters, talk about some themes. Before we all do that, it's a little bit I guess uncharacteristic of the show, but like Charles said, there's no rules. I just want to say before the recaps, it's the best show ever! Oh my god! I love it! Sorry. Okay, I need to get that out.
You feel okay?
I feel like we're being very even-toned. Yeah, this is my favorite Disney Plus show we've ever gotten by a country mile, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Are the neighbors knocking on the door and asking you if you're okay?
Not this pre-war building. We got thick walls, baby. All right. So, with that being said, I'm going to go into recap of the 3 episodes. Like I said, full spoilers. If you have not seen Andor yet, do that. Stop this. Go watch it. Or if you're just not going to see it for a while, or Disney Plus isn't available where you are, and we are your source, here we go. Episode 1, which was titled Casa. Retroactively, it was just title chapters ahead of time. It is now officially called Casa. We open on Morlana 1 in the year BBY5. We'll get to that. As Cassian Andor heads through the red light district to find a brothel. Star Wars. While being served, he mentions that he's looking for a girl from Kenari, his sister. While in that brothel, he unintentionally insults a couple corporate rent-a-cops who follow him outside in an attempt to shake him down. A fight ensues with Cassian accidentally killing one and then very much not accidentally killing the other one before fleeing the planet. On to Ferrix, where we meet B2EMO, the best little droid. Meeting Cassian, where Cassian asked the droid to lie about his whereabouts from the previous night. It's very stressful for him. Cassian then goes into town where he meets up with Brasso, a friend who he also asks to form an alibi for his whereabouts the previous evening. Brasso, however, is a total bro, and he does so. Back to Morlana 1, the corporate security headquarters, and uniform-modifying kiss-ass Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn. He gives Chief Hine, who, gotta say, one of the MVPs of the episode, amazing performance, a report on the 2 murdered men, but Hine understands how the system works, and he orders Karn to just bury it. He does not. Back on Ferrix, Cassian meets up with Bix and Tim in order to ask Bix to alert her contraband buyer. He has an item. He needs to get enough credits to escape for a while after his double murder and lie low. She finally relents and sneaks away to make contact with the buyer. Cyril, meanwhile, forms a task force and discovers the signal of Cassian's ship as it was leaving Morlana 1, and he sets up an APB on Ferrix for a Kenari mail. During all of this, by the way, we've seen flashbacks of Cassian, or Casa, as a child, as a ship crashed through the atmosphere of his homeworld. The episode ends with all the children of his tribe setting off through the jungle to discover that wreck. Episode 2, That Would Be Me. After a brief check-in on the flashback, we meet the time grappler Hammerman, who is Employee of the Year, absolutely, who begins the Phyrexian day in epic fashion by slamming hammers onto what I think is a big sheet of Beskar. Not positive. Bix receives the Primor, who are the cops, authorities APB about Cassian and races off to speak to him, but not before Tim also finds the message and hatches a different plan. We then meet Marva Andor, Cassian's adoptive mother, who has also heard the message from B2, and she grills Cassian about who knows his true lineage, as she has always maintained he was from Fest. Every Imperial duck has said Fest. Did you say Fest? Great scene. Cassian then meets Bix, who informs him of the buyer's imminent arrival, and after spotting them together, Tim rats Cassian out to the authorities before Bix arrives at his apartment to unwind a bit. Cyril Karn confirms Cassian's identity and is introduced to Sergeant Linus Musk, sir, the most loyal and slightly insane figure we've seen so far, who wants nothing more than to show this degenerate the meaning of discipline. They prepare to head to Ferrix with a full squad. Luthen Rail, the mysterious buyer, arrives on the planet and begins his journey into town as Bix awakens in Tim's bed. You know. And Cassian prepares B2 to help Marva once he's fled the system. Now, back in the flashback, Casa's group finds dead Republic or Separatists based on their arm patches. Curious. Soldiers, but one of them rises, shoots the kid's leader, and after a small battle, the group retreats back into the forest with their fallen commander, but Casa heads into the ship. Back in the present day, Cassian prepares his getaway ride. Luthen exchanges forced pleasantries with another visitor to Ferrix, and the episode ends with a wicked drum solo as Cassian prepares to meet his destiny. Episode 3, Reckoning. Cassian briefs Brasso on cleaning up his debt, and Luthen meets Bix in the street where she tells him all about Cassian's troubles. And Cyril and Sergeant Mosk head towards the planet surface for the final confrontation. In our flashback, Casa begins destroying the inside of the Republic ship before he's discovered by scavengers, B2 Emo, and Marva and Clem Andor. Casa attempts to fight them, but Marva immediately sedates him because a Republic ship is coming soon to finish the job, and she won't leave him there to die. Real-time Marva then has her home invaded by Cyril and his Corpo thugs, who turn over the place looking for Cassian. After roughhousing Marva a bit, Cassian's comm comes through B, and the Corpos trace the signal as Luthen Rail arrives to meet Cassian in the warehouse. As they meet, a crowd gathers to protest Primo's treatment of Marva, and Bix discovers Tim's treachery, and the city begins to rumble. Luthen offers to pay Cassian for his piece, but he wants something more. He believes Cassian has talent and drive and asks him if he wants to finally fight these bastards for real. As the Primos walk through the city, the citizens begin banging rhythms on pieces of metal, the sound of reckoning. That is also inspired, fun fact, by Latin American countries in our real world called El Cacerolazo, which is a form of protest by clanging pots and pans. Shout out to Triad of the Force and our other Latinx community members for pointing that out on Twitter. Corpos then descend upon the warehouse, and a firefight begins between Luthen and Cassian and the men. Elsewhere, Bix is roughed up by additional officers, and when Tim tries to rescue her, he's gunned down in the street. Additional scraps float up throughout the city, culminating in Luthen and Cassian capturing Cyril, tying him up, then blowing up a decoy ship while taking a speeder across the flats back to Luthen's ship. The episode ends with mirrored scenes of Marva's rescue of Casa and Cassian's escape with Luthen. Bix tries to reach for Tim, Brasso has a solitary drink by the bar, Cyril gazes into the flame of his own defeat, and a percussive melody of strings beats in the background. The battle is over, but the war has just begun. All right, so that's Andor, guys. I gave my initial reaction. I easily think this is the best Disney Plus show we've got in My Country Mile so far. This quality is blew me away. This is a full Star Wars film. I felt on Wednesday. Just really blown away. So let's just go around the circle. Charles, start with you, man. What'd you think? Just base thoughts.
Yeah, I loved it. I am very glad that I took the advice that was floating around out there and watched all 3 episodes all together. I think I would have enjoyed it much less if I'd watched it 1, 2, 3 separated. Sure. I think the first 2 episodes were actually a little slow. And it was fine. There was enough payoff in episode 3, but you kind of needed that whole thing all together, I think, to feel like the payoff was there. I am so glad they did so much practical stuff for this.
Yes.
Going to real sets. I mean, I think now in retrospect, I am aware that they're in the volume, when they're in the volume.
Same.
And
wild.
I wasn't before, I don't think. I mean, there were moments, but I'm very aware of it now. So I think it was filmed really well. I think the story is done really well. I was confused at a few small things that I know we'll talk about, but for the type of show it is, that it's like that espionage thriller type thing, it's kind of to be expected. I don't want them to overly explain things. I want to be able to figure things out. And I think that's kind of how they're framing the story. So all things said, this hurts me to say, because my love for Kenobi.
Amazing show.
I think this is the strongest start to a show that we've had yet.
For sure.
Awesome. Corey, pick it up, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you guys know how big of a fan of Rogue One I am. So, starting with this era and time is just really, really incredible. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think this has been the best launch so far, and it's just different than anything else we've seen so far. I think it just feels darker. It feels grittier. It feels heavier. Like they're not afraid to maybe talk about more controversial themes. Like we got really strong sexual overtones in that one scene, which has never happened in live action Star Wars before. I don't know. It just feels like they're taking bigger risk with the show than I think we've ever seen before. And I'm totally here for it. I guess I agree that it was slow, but I don't know, slow almost has a negative connotation to it. So it almost feels like it was just a different pace, but I thought it was fine. I mean, I think I think we should talk about, what this Star Wars storytelling in TV is very interesting, because we're getting these episodic releases, and I don't know if that is changing the way we think about shows, I guess. So almost wonder, this made me wonder, what would the Kenobi release have looked like if it was all at once, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see. We've never gotten 3 episodes of a live action show before, and it seems like they did that on purpose. One, because they delayed, some of the production a little bit and that sort of thing. But I almost wonder if they release all 3 episodes together on purpose, because maybe they didn't think it would have been received as well if you couldn't watch the whole arc all at once.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's come back to that idea, I think, during this episode a little bit. But gut reaction, it's excellent. It's dark, it's gritty. I think it's a Star Wars project that a lot of us have been wanting for a long time. I mean, one of the first shows that I would maybe raise my eyebrows a little bit, somebody, I think in our Slack or Discord, or somebody asked us can I watch this with my kids? And I was like, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Depends on what kind of parent you are.
It's a little dark,
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. I think that we're getting, Star Wars for various age groups. So
Yeah.
I'm all here for it. Excellent launch, excellent premiere. It's gonna be a good show.
Yeah. Alex Damon made a good point over on Star Wars Explained that Star Wars is for everyone, and obviously we watch it all. I really love Rebels, I love Clone Wars, I love these shows, but there was an acknowledgement that in the meetings when you're coming up with the analytics and the metrics, those key audiences are younger than us, which is fine. But that isn't quite our group. Whereas Andor, I think we are the target demographic, and there is something that is special about realizing I mean, even Mando, I think, is amazing, but it's probably slightly younger. But Andor is 20s and 30s, and this is kind of who you're made for. So I completely agree. Wes, what you think, man?
No, I thought it was great. It was definitely strategic, I think, on them putting out the first 3 episodes, because a lot of it had me wondering, what does all this have to do with anything? I had to turn the subtitles on through halfway through the first episode to understand what Andor was talking about with Bix, because I was like, what is this item that he had? Did I miss something in the beginning? I was questioning a lot of that, even through the second episode as well. So it left you guessing, like you were talking about, Charles. I thought it was a good idea, though, that they did that, because there was a payoff right in episode 3, and that's kind of why they put all those out in that 3 episode arc. I think was a very good idea. But I also think Andor is going to be one of those shows where you don't have to know everything about Star Wars to get into it. Kind of the Mandalorian, Obi-Wan, you had to know a lot about Star Wars lore to kind of get what was going on. But with this one, really all I got to know about is the Empire is bad. There's a rebel cell where it was Leia. There's Han Solo. And after this, obviously. But they can watch this show and get into the actual storytelling of like an espionage, a spy thriller, without actually having to know a lot about Star Wars. There's that, those characteristics that we see with the kind of with the aliens and the dress and stuff like that. But with like actual Star Wars knowledge, it's kind of minimal. So you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
You can enjoy it without actually having to know a lot about, some of the other stuff that has to do with like Jedi lore and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good point too, because like it sounds like the show is going to finish like right at Rogue One. So maybe this is really the first like live action show that we have gotten that is a true path into the films. I mean, you could literally watch the two, how many seasons is this? Two at least? Or three? Two seasons of this, watch Rogue One, 4, 5, 6, and now you're a Star Wars fan, right? So like,
I can't wait for this payoff. I can't wait for the payoff.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend who literally asked me. I posted on Facebook about it, and they were like, "Okay, if I'm not caught up, what do I need to watch this show?" And I thought about it, and to your point, Wes, I said you might need to have seen Rogue One, but also like you could literally. I do honestly think you could have never seen a Star Wars movie and just start the show and be like, there are very clearly good guys and bad guys. You know exactly who Cassian is now. You know the style of what's going on. And I think that's really interesting because I think even more so than like Mando, especially the Book of Boba, like you gotta have base knowledge to get into it. But on that note, everyone that has been talking about this show, in positive and the few negative things I've seen, has been using the phrase different, right? It's different. So I want to kind of go into that a little bit and really kind of say, what does that mean? And I want to start off with the tone of the show, because I think previously with like Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, those are kind of like adventure Star Wars shows, right? There's heroes and there's quests kind of, and you're kind of going on certain things. There's like big street shootouts. That is a very much, even when it's dark, it's still light enough. Like Kenobi, the tone was that of like the defeated hero trying to rise back to the call to adventure and things like that. And this tone of Andor is, I think, if I had to use a word, tense. I think that them releasing all 3 episodes at once was a great idea. I loved that. I loved that it was a full arc, but also it's kind of exhausting in a way to like be this tense for that long.
Yeah.
And I wonder, how did you guys react just physically to like a show that had everyone kind of on edge? The music, shout out to Nicholas Patel, who I want to talk about a couple times as the composer of this show. You want to talk about different, masterful use of music and the kind of little strings that were in the background almost through every episode, always making you feel on edge, like this place could blow at any moment. How did the tension treat you guys throughout?
Well, I mean, the show certainly feels like they're not really afraid to show sort of the dark side of the rebellion, I guess. I mean,
yeah, sure.
I mean, the first, how far were we into the episode when that guy got killed?
Less than 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes. Like, I mean, the show opened with Cassian going to a brothel. Okay. Like,
which we are not supposed to have. And
has that ever been canon before? We had brothels in Star Wars, surely, in some books and stuff. There's been references to that.
Not in visual media,
but not in any visual media. So he goes to a brothel with very obvious, like, prostitutes are like talking to everybody. Like, I was like, okay, this is dark. And he freaking killed that guy in cold blood who was begging for his life. Like, dear God, I literally paused and I was like, holy shit. Like, I was shocked by that. Like in a good way. Like, it was just like, it was good. I know, good. Yeah, give him what he deserves. No, like it was just different. I mean, very, very different, very dark, very,
what was
gritty.
Can I say something that was really striking about that moment that I think makes the point that you're saying, Corey, is they almost made Cassian shoot like how we have on the screen right now, if you're actually watching us live, they almost made him shoot at you as the audience member. Like you were almost
Sure.
first
Wow.
person as the man who was
a
shot.
good
And it
point.
made me view Cassian as, okay, that thing that happened in Rogue One was not like a fluke, and he was like kind of forced into it. Like that wasn't his first rodeo. Like
No.
he's
Mm-hmm.
been doing this. Like he is a dark, he's in a bad place.
Yes, he's decisive. Like he will do whatever he takes to survive. And that's like, I don't know. We've never seen that sort of violence and like brutality from a quote unquote good guy before. Right. Like,
Right.
and that's just, I don't know. And that was the first 10 minutes of the film is we start with the brothel and then we have a brutal murder. And I don't know. It is just heavy, tense, dark, violent. I don't know. They're really getting this seedy undertone of the galaxy right.
Yeah.
And this new era of TV shows. So,
and I love that they're kind of going away from the militaristic side, because like obviously in Star Wars we get the Empire, we get the Rebellion, and there is kind of like a military decorum to a lot of it, right? Of like these are stormtroopers are enlisted soldiers, the Rebellion, you know what you're doing. Whereas this show, we talked a little off air about like, you know, who are these blue dudes? Who are the corporate guys, the primos guys, as they call them? Like these are not Imperial stormtroopers, and these are not rebel soldiers. These are basically security people hired by a corporation and everyday people. So the violence to me really hits more viscerally because it seems almost more real in a way and more like invasive. Like these are just people going about their days, and these are guys that are just clocking in and out, like that guy with the noodles that was bitching about overtime. That's who these guys are, and that's why I think like Chief Heinbein was such an interesting character to be like, oh God, these idiots! Yep, you shouldn't pick a fight with the locals. Whatever, it's an accident.
I loved that little short monologue he had where he was like, "We have two guys that are using time they're not supposed to have at a brothel, which they're not supposed to visit, like." That rough up some guy, and I was just like, they were in the wrong place. Like he tells it exactly how it is, and it's just like, and he gets it. And I was just like, these are cops, is what this is like. Kind of, they're bullies. They're trying to bully some random guy, and they got paid back for it. But just to see how quick this situation went sour really fast, it wasn't like, I don't know, Cassian. He did defend himself, but he also like
did a no witnesses thing.
He also like really killed that guy. Like, maybe he didn't need to kill the guy. And I love the tone of that too. It wasn't like, in the way that scene played out, it wasn't like his friend got killed and he tried to attack him. Like his friend got killed, and he also pulled the trigger, by the way. That was not Cassian. Right? Cassian didn't physically kill that guy. Like he got kind of caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, and he got bumped. Yeah.
But he immediately jumps to the conclusion, like, you killed him, you killed my friend. And then you can see it in his eyes, like, oh shit, I should not be accusing you of killing this guy because now I'm a witness to this crime. And he immediately changes. And that was just brutal.
Yeah.
And he went from trying to be a bully to like begging for his life because he realized how bad this looked. And like, I don't know, I've just never seen that before. I've never seen that type of scene play out.
And you can see Cassian realize like, this guy is so scared of me, but also you could see in Cassian's eyes, the eyes of a man that has been bullied by the Empire and these corporals for so many years. And he's like, you're going to tell me whatever you want right now, but the second I let you go,
that's right.
You know, you've seen my face. You are going to be like, this guy killed my partner. And once I give you your gun back, like we might shoot him down right there. Like there's just again, there's no clean lines. Like in warfare, and I think that's just so fascinating.
It was very clean, like Eric. He had to die. That guy had.
You're right.
He had to go, or he would have started talking. So
snitches get stitches.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying.
He got worse than that.
Yeah.
If he'd have let him go,
he's gonna come back with a spider face.
If he'd have let him go, then the chase part would have been condensed by like say another day, right? They found out they've got the warrant out and everybody's looking for him. They'd have found him within 5 hours. Let's say 5
Easily.
hours. Yeah.
So we're talking a little bit about what has made this feel different. And one thing stood out to me that we haven't mentioned yet. I found the like vocabulary some of the phrasing in this show to be very unique. Like I put subtitles on, and that was mainly because I don't get as much of the detail if I don't do that. I'm an old man already.
Mhm.
And they use a lot of phrasing and words that are just I have never seen in Star Wars. It's not necessarily like specific to this this part of the timeline within Star Wars. You know, like sometimes you can tell that certain people speak a little bit differently in the OT versus the PT and stuff like that. But it is very different in a lot of scenes. Did y'all pick up on that or think anything about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, my biggest thing was I think they talked kind of like people, and in like a weird way of like they didn't talk like Star Wars characters. They just talked like people in scenes. And I think the easiest one for me to pick out in front of my head is obviously like he didn't say Dank Farrik. He said, "Oh shit." Like, and it's like
Yeah,
small like that.
interesting.
Yeah.
But can you imagine going to Tony Gilroy and said he would say Dank Farrik, and seeing every interview with Tony Gilroy, he's like, no, he's not. No. Like they spoke like people do, I think, in like
Yeah.
other TV shows. Like if this was just like you take away the Arabesh, you take away the Empire, and you replace it with regular characters and call them a random country. Like this just feels like a spy thriller, and I think from the vocabulary to even the filming of the scenes, like it didn't feel like they were trying to shoot this sci-fi other thing. They talked like this is a briefing. This is a, it felt like something I'd read in a Luceno book, honestly,
Yeah.
more so than I would see on another show.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I
think
love
that I think that helped with the like getting casuals into the show as well. Because if they like you heard someone say Dank Farrik, you're like, damn it, did I miss something? Do I need to go look that up? Like, what does that mean?
what does
Like,
that
it means shit, Dad. Just sit there and watch.
That's what it means. We all understand. And it's and I think that, to that extent too, is that we had people that spoke, yes, Cohen, like you're saying, they felt like there were actually people who lived there. They didn't speak like they were trying to tell me as an audience member what was going on. They spoke as if I was intruding on their day-to-day lives and it just happened to be filmed. And I think like with Bix and
Oh,
Cassian,
yeah,
it wasn't like, hey, Bix, my friend who owns this place here, like it was like, oh, this is just their daily conversation. And like that meeting with Hein, it's weird. We keep hitting on the meeting with Hein and Zero, but it's legit one of my favorite scenes. Like this is just a higher up talking to an overeager employee about how the world works. And
Yeah.
we haven't seen that really. And it's just all these little things that make it feel so lived in and so organic. And even going from that, I feel like to your point earlier, Charles, about how we can tell it's not the volume, like the streets are filled with people. Like it feels like an actual place. The wall of gloves is fucking awesome. Like there's
that is great.
that many
Yeah, yeah.
people. I love the wall of
Yeah.
gloves. It's so awesome. But like every single person grabbed a pair of gloves. Like these are actually
Yeah.
people that are just living their lives. The hammer guy got a minute of screen time to hit hammers down. Like
Yeah, and because not to pick on it, but the Book of Boba Fett, we said this in Bounty Hunt, it felt small. Like
Yeah.
the city, the streets felt small. It felt like you knew that they were filming on like in a very small area, and this was sprawling.
yes, it actually
Yeah.
felt like the size was good. And of course, the story got even bigger because I do want to ask you guys about the flashbacks, which is not a very Star Warsy thing. We got them a little bit in Mando to kind of show him there. We got Boba Fett. We got obviously the Tuskens was kind of almost its own thing. How did that work for you? Especially one of the things that I loved, and I actually I texted some folks that went to the premiere. I was like, it's not subtitled. And is that intentional, or am I as a setting off? I'm like, no, it's intentionally not subtitled, which I found fascinating. But how did those work for you guys? Kind of seeing Casa's evolution up until obviously the end of episode 3, where we get that beautiful kind of mirrored scene.
Yeah, this was really interesting. I felt like this flashback style was very different than anything we've seen before. We got a lot of flashbacks in Kenobi, and they were very intentional. They were long flashbacks. Like this was like really rapid fire. I mean, you would be like watching a scene, suddenly there's a flashback, and then suddenly we're back in a scene. Like it was just kind of very quick, and they got closer together as the episode went on too, right? So by the end of the episode, they were like really, really like they were switching back and forth for like a split second, and
Yeah.
really interesting. We got no context for the flashbacks. It's in a different language. Like we have no idea what the hell is going on. Like you have to use their body language, and the fact that they did all that with like child actors and stuff is very, very cool. And like we still don't know jack about what was going on. I mean, I think we got the context now, right? Like the Empire messed up a planet with mining. Like there's this ship of infected people or something that crashed, and Cassian got kind of
which Marva calls a Republic ship, but they're wearing separatist uniforms, which then asks the question, like, was the Republic messing around with bioweapons and wanted to pretend to be separatists?
Are they wearing separatist uniforms?
I thought she said a Republic ship was coming, like was on the way to.
I thought
maybe
she
like
was.
finish the
I
job.
might be wrong, because I think it's also interesting because they're different. Like that is regardless of who it is, because she said Republics are coming in. That's true. Because it is a separatist uniform.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I find that interesting.
I want to see that. Can you find that scene, Wes? Because I thought it was I thought it looked like the science logo, like that we see a lot of the like. You remember we got to see that in
Mando.
Was it?
No,
is it Mando?
that's later. That's later on.
No,
in the timeline.
it's not Mando.
This is still during the.
This
This is during the Clone Wars still.
Yeah, I
Right
know.
at the end of Clone Wars,
It's
I'm trying to
not
remember.
Mando that I'm thinking of. It's we get to see some. Is it?
Yes, it's
the animated show. It was what's the animated show we just got? Bad Batch. The end of Bad Batch. Remember, we get to see some of the scientists on that.
I thought that was the cloning people.
Yeah, the cloning people, though.
Yeah.
But there's other people in uniforms and stuff. But anyway, I thought that was it. I'll have to see. There's a logo on his sleeve.
Yeah.
It's not
there's
the.
a
I don't
logo
think it's
on
the
his sleeve.
Separatist logo though.
Yeah,
Is
we gotta
it?
see.
I don't know.
Not that
Regardless,
this isn't
I think it's
compelling
cool.
for our listeners, but I think we got to talk about Aunt Petunia being in Star Wars.
Dude, Marva,
She's my favorite.
she's that first scene. She's just sitting in a chair, and then she just grills Cassian down, and I'm like, I want every second of you on screen. She's magnetic.
Really good, man. When she was crying at the end, it got me.
She didn't turn the heat on, Charles.
I know.
It gets
She
cold.
didn't turn the heat on.
God.
Mm.
Yeah, that broke me. And to see her both in that moment and then in the flashbacks, I love that we see her as like the able-bodied like scavenger.
Aunt
Like-
Petunia, aged Aunt Petunia. Yeah.
That's right. She's like, and immediately she's like, okay, I'm getting my stuff here. There's a child. You know what? He's freaking out. I'm not gonna leave him to die. I gotta get him out of here. That's
for
what
sure.
I'm gonna do. No questions asked.
So what was she just a scavenger? Is that what we're
the vibe
led to
I got.
believe? Because
Yeah,
I was
her and what's his dad's name, which is Clem, according to the credits.
Clem. Okay.
Clem.
Yeah, I didn't fully get that part of it either, because I was kind of under the impression that this world was, after whatever disaster happened, like just out on its own. Like people did not go to this planet. And so it was curious to me that they were there to even go and try to scavenge that ship. And if they might not have seen any of the other children around or like anyone else around.
Yeah. And I think that'll be interesting going forward. Like, how many of these flashbacks do we continue to get? Like Obi-Wan, do they keep it as a narrative device that we continuously go, or is this kind of now told the story where we meet them both? I think they'll probably keep using it personally. I would love to see more of them being like, does she come to grips with the fact that she was like, I took you kind of without your permission? Like, it is kind of that like white savior trope of like, no, you need to go. And are we going to see immediately the place just get bombarded by bombs and, oh my gosh, thank goodness he got out? Or is he going to come to the fact of like, you took me away, I had a sister, like, and that he still hasn't found? You know, does their resentment, or like, I think that's fascinating with the two of them, because there's clearly love between them in the modern day. Like, he clearly loves her very much, and she is worried about him. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of evolves. Again, a very unique thing. We haven't seen in Star Wars anything, much less a popular television show.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Jumping back to what you were saying,
Yes.
Corey.
I was gonna say I found a Reddit thread that talks about it. So there's the
That's
there's
what
the
it is.
logo.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's the logo. And so I found a Reddit thread that the conclusion is pretty funny. I like this. I like this conclusion. The conclusion is essentially someone is wrong. It's either us, the characters, or the writers and the costume designers. Somebody is wrong because they say that there's some like enhanced pictures of the logo, and it is absolutely the hex of the CIS.
Yeah, separatists. Yeah.
But Marva also implies that they're Republic because she says the kids just killed a Republic officer, right? Okay.
Yep.
And then immediately afterwards, she says a Republic ship is in orbit and coming in, right? So that I don't know, that logic thread doesn't like total make a lot of sense. So like either they're Republic or maybe they got the logo wrong, or maybe maybe they were going for like an Imperial Science logo or something. Maybe they're stolen. I don't know. Something is weird. But I found some of the logic in this thread is kind of weird. They're like, well, maybe the scavengers have it wrong. Like maybe they think that they're Republic, but they're not. But that seems like a weird detail to include.
Yeah,
so
maybe it's meant to be an unreliable narrator. Or
I guess.
Which
I hate that though.
Is used in like thrillers.
I would say I think that for one, Obi-Wan Cohen says in the chat, I don't believe they made a fault because there is a moment, as far as the costumers go specifically, when Cyril was talking about his tailored uniform.
Yeah,
there was a thread I found on Twitter from a costumer who said, as a person who works in costuming, I looked at his uniform and literally the seam allowance on his shoulders looks different because on a tailored garment, the seam allowance would look like that. Like that is the level of detail they use.
Yeah,
so
they don't get
they're
that
not going to
shit
get patched wrong. You
No,
know,
not a patch wrong. Yeah, I agree with that. But it's very interesting though that like, and that's more of the point, right? Is like we're getting these. You go all the way back to the beginning here. We're getting these flashbacks that are like, there's not enough context to understand really what's happening yet, and I think that is. We're sort of seeing it through the eyes of a child, right? Like he doesn't really understand what's happening. Yeah. He even looks like he is like very confused with the hunting party and stuff.
Yeah,
right? Like,
he's not like a hunter usually.
Well, I feel like that's his first time.
Yeah, right. It seems like he was young even when everything happened, and maybe he doesn't totally even remember everything. So
not quite 6 years old, but young.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone was focusing on the patch on those uniforms. I was too busy. Like that dude has like 19 blow darts in his
I know, dude. That was so funny.
That guy was a king. I'm like, yo, man, go off.
I love the blow darts, man. We've never seen something like that before. That was so cool. Indiana Jones, man.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura when nature calls.
Yeah. Exactly. It honestly reminded me a little bit because they talked about, the planet was like semi-destroyed in a mining disaster, and then we see the giant mine that's been abandoned. So clearly, like all the adults worked there were all killed, and then the children just seem to kind of get abandoned.
That was a painting, by the way. I think.
What do they
how
call
they
those
used to do
OT?
them? Yeah,
matte
how they
painting,
used to do them in the OT. I think that the disaster area was a painting, and I'm gonna wait for the behind the scenes. I'm serious. If you look, it looks not like a normal CGI
I'm
graphic
excited.
to me, and
I couldn't notice because I was watching basically on an iPad. So.
Well, yeah, watch it on a normal screen. I have a feeling when they show the behind the scenes, they did some paintings and things like that. Like
I would believe it. I believe it.
Funny.
Yeah,
this scene.
Yeah,
and specifically, if you go even a little ahead of this, there's one where he starts walking away, and it's off to the right, and it looks to me very much like it may have just been a painting.
Interesting.
I'd be excited to see it. I mean,
I love it.
So much
I thought it was really
good.
The language stuff too, like you said, Eric, was really cool. I love that we didn't get the subtitles for the language. That was really cool. How pissed were you guys that Cassian didn't pick up that guy's gun before he walked in the ship?
Oh my god! I was like, but I'm like, buddy, clearly that's a superior weapon. But you know what?
He obviously doesn't know how to use it, but still, every time somebody in a movie or a TV show like drops a gun and the person like that's going into the complex scene like doesn't have a superior weapon, I'm always like, get that guy's gun every single time. So this shot, holy shit, this does look like a matte painting. This looks like the famous terrible matte painting in Empire Strikes Back where Lando and Han are standing in front of the Falcon, and it looks like they're in front of
that's a rough
crayon drawing, basically. Yeah.
Crayon drawing. Oh, the credit you give.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think this behind the scenes is going to be massive. So I want to talk about like now just let's go to the characters themselves, because obviously we meet a lot of folks. A lot of people got named pretty quickly. Not everyone was insane like me and watched all three of them twice.
Planets
in the same
also.
Day.
We famously
planets.
We famously complained a little bit about like breakneck speed as far as planets. We got like 8 planets named in the first like 15 minutes of the show, and I'm like, I have no idea what the hell is going on.
Because Ferrix and Morlana 1 are our 2 big ones, and Kenari, obviously, which I also like, they did say it a lot. Like, they really, really hit it home. Like,
Me too.
Kenari! You said it was from Kenari. It's a Kenari one. Everyone from Kenari. I'm like, thank you. I need that. So
what planet are we on? What planet are we on?
Ferrix.
Like
Ferrix.
Ferrix?
Yes.
Okay.
And they did the Rogue One thing where they put it up on screen when we first landed there, which was helpful. And then Morlana 1 is the Corpo planet where they're all on. Yeah,
and
so
it's
this
the
is
Morlana,
the main.
Yeah, it's like a Morlana.
Yeah, the corporate
sector
zone
or something too, right?
Yeah.
It says Morlana. What's it? Morlana. Okay, Morlana corporate zone. Okay, it says it right there. Yeah.
There must be like a Morlana 2, Morlana 3.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he says, he used to be stationed on 4.
On 4, yeah.
And now he's on 1. So there's multiple Morlana, which is also so corporate. And I really like this whole idea of the corporate zones and the name. Yes, because it's
lazy
so cold.
corporate.
It's kind of like if Amazon bought a bunch of planets and then hired a bunch of cops. Like,
it's like how BMW names their cars. They just like the 3 Series, 4 Series, 5 Series.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I'm just gonna call Morlana 1 Night City because it's just Cyberpunk 2077 in Star Wars, like straight up.
Cool,
I can see that.
You know,
did we get a Did we either see or get a reference to the what's the Star Wars planet? I think it's in a bunch of Legends stuff. It starts with an F, I think, and it's like an Imperial, like
Fondor.
Fondor. Did we get did we see Fondor in this? I think we did.
We did because I just pulled that out of my brain, and we definitely.
Okay.
Yes,
sounds fair.
I thought we did. What was that? What was the reference to that or something? Is Fondor around this? Yeah, Fondor is a shipyard. We've never seen in any kind of TV or live action or anything. I don't remember.
Like, in Battlefront 2, it's the map. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And what Brandon had just pointed out, like, was the first time we see BBY.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that too.
Also, BBY 5, not 5 BBY.
Yeah. Oh, yes. it's the British. It's the British spelling, right?
Yeah. Battle of Yavin 5.
Yeah. I wanted to bring this up because we just talked about how I'm kind of a timeline nerd on our last Living Force episode.
Yeah.
This is I checked into it. This is the first time we've ever seen a timeline reference ever in Star Wars media, ever. Like it's not heavily referenced in comics. We rarely see it in books, like other than just looking at the timeline and stuff. And we get it in a live action show is kind of a big deal, actually. Like we all have to, we have to look at this stuff like in hindsight, and it's almost sort of beneficial for the creators to not give exact timeline dates because it allows things to be a little bit flexible with storytelling. But we literally got a time drop, which was kind of a big deal. And they wrote it backwards of what we've ever seen before, which is fascinating. So I don't know. I wonder if we'll ever see this happening or if we'll see this start being used more regularly. But
well, it's also interesting because they've been trying to start off with that like Star Killer event timeline thing that they did in I think one of the recent reference books we talked about earlier in the year. And now they're like, no, like we're not, it's Battle of Yavin. That's the way it is. And I also think they've been so specific about the timeline. We said it in this week's Living Force. Like, they're like 5 years before first season. In the second season, I think we'll see 4 BBY, 3 BBY. I think they're going to show us that in the arcs. They've now established that.
Yeah.
Alexandre in the chat makes a good point too, because this is BBY that can't exist in the universe at this time because it's before an event that happened. So that is a very interesting idea of like, it's just for us. Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to the audience.
It's interesting. The more story that they make, like, and the further they move along the timelines, the more it's going to be like, why is everything set with that one battle? Because like, there's going to be other massive things that happen. And it's like, well, what about that thing?
I know. Yeah. It's like what if history books like started using timelines of like
World War II?
BCJ before the coming of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, they did. BC was,
I mean,
it's wild, man.
No, before the second coming of Jesus.
Currently we're at
7 before the second coming of Jesus. What? That's
interesting.
There's a funny reference to that in Futurama. We're always talking about that. And they're like,
do you like that show?
And he's like, oh yeah, that was after the second coming of Jesus. It's like, what?
Also, Brandon makes a great point in the chat. All Star Wars is happening in the past.
That's a good point.
So BBY actually narratively makes total sense because we are always witnessing the past. Because even Wikipedia is always written in the past tense. Great point, Brandon. Now I want to go.
Anyway, we got way off track. We were trying to talk about characters. We started talking about planets. And we started
we're going to characters now because I want to just go into our main ones, just to kind of say now what we're thinking of them. Number one, I thought as far as the average acting ability of the main cast, 10 out of 10. This is, I think, the best, just purely how do you say the words in the scene you're in with your scene, like basic craft. I thought it was incredible. I thought all of them were very good actors.
Yeah, no characters took me out at all.
No,
like
they were all in
even
the same movie.
even like goofy side characters and stuff that only had like one-off lines. Like the guy that Cassian negotiated like at the very end with that alien, they were like bickering. That was hilhilarious. By the way,
I love that part. That was great.
Yeah.
Even that guy, you had like one line was like fantastic.
You know what from Kanari?
You
just told the other guy.
The guy with his mechanic there when he's like, "Hey, can you get me out of here today?" And he's like,
yeah.
"Shut up!" It was like Scotty and his little guy from Star Trek is what it reminded me of.
I also just want to like commend and point out that we have by far the most diverse cast we've ever had with this show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's impressive. It's completely immersive, and like it feels good to finally be on a backwater planet where everybody's not white, because like that is not how it would be.
Finally.
Like even looking at like Phantom Menace and stuff and thinking about Tatooine, like the last time we watched that movie together, we actually talked about that of like, there are a lot of white people on Tatooine. Like, surely this backwater planet would have a little more diversity. And like this show like nailed that, by the way. Like, I mean, there's a ton of different characters in the background. A noticeable lower number of aliens, I think, than we've ever had before, which is kind of interesting. Did you guys notice that? We have other than that one guy, the big guy, he was hilarious, by the way. We didn't really have an alien heavily featured in a scene. I mean, even the one I just referenced, where they're kind of bickering or whatever, he's kind of in the background. You don't really see him really well. Like humans. Not a lot of aliens. Very interesting.
No, I also want to say as a fun fact, so Diego Luna and Adria, who plays Bix, both of them actually did their own dubbed lines if you watch it in Spanish, because they're both Latin. So if you watch the Latin America dub, that's still Cassian and Bix actually saying the lines. So
that's really
for
cool.
those of us,
that's fantastic.
Again, that's what you get.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? I've seen it resurface recently. It's from the Rogue One premiere, but the guy talking about taking his Mexican dad to see Rogue One. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah. Tell the story, folks. It's beautiful.
Yeah, a guy takes his dad to see Rogue One, and like he's so shocked that Diego Luna's accent is so thick. He's like, and his dad was just like totally shocked by that, and it was like, and he was like, why is his accent so thick? He didn't fake it at all. And like, he was really quiet about it and was just like completely moved that a Mexican actor had been given such a strong role in such a huge franchise and stuff. So it feels really good to see how much they've leaned on that, like in this show as well. Like that Diego gets to just be himself, which is amazing. So I'm totally for it.
And let's talk about Diego. I mean, this is Andor, he's a titular character. This is obviously, like he said, going to be a more ensemble show as we go. We have a lot of great characters coming in. We're all pretty big fans of Cassian, but let's just say now, Diego Luna's performance and also Cassian as a character.
It's 10 out of 10.
Right. Like any notes by anyone? I thought he was just spectacular.
No, he's flawless. I mean, I think honestly, Cassian and Obi-Wan in the last couple of months are just like maybe the only two like utterly flawless characters we've ever had in live action TV so far, and it's so good. It's so
also characters that are so embodied by the people who play them. Not to obviously multiple people played Obi-Wan Kenobi, multiple people played Han Solo, but the people that do really bring something to that character where you're like, no, this is partially who they are, just that person outside of Star Wars. And that's certainly the case, maybe even more so for Cassian.
Yeah,
for sure.
And we saw so many versions of him too. Like within these first 3 episodes, we see him as the like sly guy. Like he's smooth talking that lady to get his sister, but then he's also very protective of his sister. He's the fighter. He's angry. Like he literally yells, "Tell me what to do now!" with a gun at their head. Then he's really sweet with Marva. He's a bit silly bro action with Brazo. He's really quiet, intimate with Bix. He's broy with Tim. Like we see almost every version of this guy's day. All to the point where Bix says, "Oh, jealous husband." It's like, "Oh, he's a playboy." All right,
he's a complex character, which is good because people are complex, and we get to see a lot of different angles. And I don't know what made it so good. If it's the dialogue, if it's the writing, if it's just all the pieces kind of falling together, but like there's something different about this storytelling that we're seeing play out on screen. It just seems more realistic. Like
It does. Yes.
I think the one scene that really stands out to me that just didn't play out exactly like I was expecting was the scene between Cassian and Marva, where like they're telling Cassian basically the truth comes out to Marva, right? Like they're telling him that the he's wanted, basically, right? And like there's a lot of yelling, and he's trying to explain himself. The emotions are really high. And then like he reads the droid reads like the whatever to Cassian, and he what is it? He figures out that Bix is involved.
Oh yeah, he says Bix is looking for you.
Yes, and Marva, and he's like, "What? Where did Bix come from?" And he like yells at Marva. He's like, "No, wait a minute," because he's trying to get the truth. That just didn't. That's not how those scenes typically play out in TV.
No.
Like it's usually like the characters don't communicate enough, and it's really annoying as the viewer to be like, no, just communicate better, and this conflict will resolve. Like, no, it played out like a real like argument or fight would play out. That's how humans would respond to that. Like they would be angry and be like, no, wait a damn minute, so we can figure out what the hell's going on, because this is more important than what you're asking me. Like, I don't know, that just struck me as seeming like a little different and heavier, and like the emotions were just portrayed very accurately, I felt like, in that conflict. And it feels like all the dialogue is like that in the show, where the characters really just communicate what they need to communicate properly to each other and the audience at the same time. So it's hard to get that dialogue right, I feel like, in live action shows.
Yeah, and you need the actors that can handle it. Like with Fiona Shaw and Diego Luna going back and forth. So like that's so efficient. And Fiona Shaw has actually written plays as well. And I think you can see that because she works with the language so well, knows exactly what words to hit. And like in Star Wars, I feel like we usually with dialogue get a very straightforward line. Like there's so much going on that it's really, here's the conversation, we go. This was two simultaneous conversations, like you're saying, happening about two different plot points, but I didn't have trouble following because of the skill in which it was constructed.
Right.
And then
it was a very complex. It was a complex scene. I mean, like there was like you say, there were a lot of things happening in that conversation. Like Marva is trying to get the truth out of Cassian. Marva is trying to explain to Cassian that he's wanted. They're trying to find out like who knows where he's actually from. He's talking to the droid to try to figure out how Bix is involved. Like that's a really complex scene. Like I just cannot believe they got the dialogue and the writing so right. Like they just told like 4 or 5 different storylines in like a 3-minute period. And it was just utterly beautiful.
And they left that big question open: is why is it so important that people don't know about this world? Like what is the big deal about this world, and why? Like how many people have you told? And it's like, well, hell, I don't know. I haven't been keeping count. You know, it's like you haven't been telling anybody. It's like,
I don't know. There just seems to be a level of complexity with this that we've not really seen before. I mean, it feels like Game of Thrones or Rings of Power or something that is got such heavy lore and dialogue that you're supposed to understand. Like it's like we said at the beginning of this, it feels like this was really written for an adult audience. Like I don't expect a kid to be able to understand the complexity of that fight, really. But also you walk away with it like knowing exactly what you're supposed to know. So I don't know.
But not to push this conversation on to the rest of the characters, but you mentioned like the complexity, you mentioned like all these different characters in different scenes and how their dialogue was very believable. I want to talk about how at the very end, it like showed each character who we kind of met along the way, and they each had like that moment. And I know that they've been pushing this show as like, no, it's an ensemble show. It's called Andor, but it's an ensemble. I'm sitting over here thinking, okay, that ensemble is like Cassian and Mon Mothma and Bail Organa.
Yeah, me too.
Because I didn't follow a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, and I didn't watch a bunch of preview stuff. And then I realized in that moment, like, oh, all these people I've been meeting along the way, they're actually main characters, probably at least for season 1, right? And I was like, wow. And it changed the way that I viewed those characters a little bit in that moment. And it got me excited because it's not necessarily going to be big names. It's going to be people we've never met before, and like common people, if you will. Right? And they're going to play a really big role, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And like, that's the story of Revolution, right? It's like, it is common people witnessing injustice and rising up. And I think that's what we talk about Cassian. I do want to hit Marva here. I had Bix originally, but I think we're talking about Marva so organically. I want to hit on her a couple more times. Like Marva, I want to hit on Marva, man. Absolutely. No, she'd wreck me. I think what's so interesting about Marva is that the flashback is awesome with her, but once Cassian has gone to meet Luthen, I think Marva's story is really interesting. Because she sits in the chair a lot. She walks around with the cane.
Hey, who's Luthen? Hold on, who is Luthen?
He's the rebel guy.
Okay. Who's the common mechanic guy? Do you guys know his name?
That's Brasso.
Oh, I thought that's Tim.
Brasso, his buddy, or the betrayer guy?
Yeah, his buddy that works in the mine
Brasso.
or whatever too.
That's
Not
Brasso.
the mine.
That's Brasso.
Okay, Brasso.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Marva at the end of that episode really hits me because once the corporals come into her home, right? For a couple reasons. One, she still tries to stop them. Two, is still very much like, you should be ashamed. I'm not talking. And then at the end, the way they treat her kind of sets the whole town ablaze to an extent, which shows me that this whole town reveres this woman. And I love that because that is so like whenever like governments or organizations start to encroach upon the elderly or show like the town rises up and says, listen, we have all kept our mouths shut. We put our heads down, but you are messing with Marva Andor. And that does something really specific that causes them to then start banging on the pots and start to like have everyone rise up. And I really like that specific thing because it's showing that it wasn't just the Empire fighting warriors or stealing plans. They're going and hurting a beloved elder to an extent. And now that warrants Cassian and also allows the rest of everyone to rise up. And I thought that was very key. It makes her very important.
The town warning message was great. Almost like what they had in it's not really a spoiler, but in Kenobi, where they had like a siren that went off whenever when the Tuscans came?
Settlers Call.
Settlers Call.
Settlers Call.
Yeah,
that was really cool. Somebody said either in Discord or maybe it was in our chat earlier. I can't remember. It's all running together. We've seen so many people communicating about this. Like, have you guys seen that thing about it being like a reference to like Latin America or something like that?
So I said that in the recap. It's called I might not pronounce it right. El Cacerolazo. And it's Triad of the Force. And a couple other folks mentioned that on Twitter that I saw, and it is like Latin American countries with revolutions. Like it's based on hitting pots and pans is like a signal of rebellion and revolution. And like there's no accident that Diego Luna and Adria are Latinx actors. Like they are from countries that like do this historically, and it is part of bringing in the real life backgrounds of the actors to make these characters. And it was also very like startling in the way Marva talks about it. It's like, oh, you don't have to be worried about it, but when it stops, that's when you need to be afraid. And those guys looked it.
Cool.
What happens? What happens when it stops? And she's just
I was scared for them,
back in her
dude.
chair.
I was like, I didn't know what was gonna happen. Like it was really.
Dude, I get paid hourly. I'm out of here. There's no way.
I know.
So
that was beautiful. Marva as a character, just in general, has been fantastic. Gia in our on our team said that she really appreciated how much like they've been bringing like older women into Star Wars recently. Like Gia said she just turned 50 like it just, I don't know, so much representation has been really, really cool. We don't get a lot of elders, I guess, in Star Wars either. Like we got a little bit of that from the way that the OT characters were portrayed in the sequel trilogy, but
because they were cool when they were younger, it's not so much that they're just cool because they're old.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But then, of course, the next one is the complete opposite of that, unfortunately. I mean, Bix, guys. My goodness.
Stop.
That's all. Like, so one
She's
amazing
a smoke show. Let's just leave it at that.
Like, oh my dear Lord,
dude.
what an amazingly beautiful person. Also, like her intro scene with Cassian, electric. Exciting. And if I was Tim, I would also be like, she's gonna leave me any second. I do not deserve this amazing woman. Like, I get the fear, but like she was similar to you, Charles, I'd kind of known the behind the scenes, but hadn't heard a ton. So I didn't really quite know about how much she was gonna be involved. I was blown away by her. Like she is contacting the rebellion. She is working on stuff. She's kind of keeping the city going. She was the one that really started like making the signals go. Like she's really involved and intense. And I love her.
Do we think that, kind of what, to circle back around what you said earlier, Charles, about all the characters kind of having their own moment, like it's heavily implied, right, that pretty much all of these characters that we got to see are gonna end up in the rebellion? Is that kind of how looks like it's going, you guys? Like we're gonna get, I mean, all these characters are already perfectly set up
I think we're gonna see all these people, pulled in one way or another and serve their role. And sadly, I think we might see a lot of these people die, and it's just
I agree.
Cassian.
Yeah,
I think that might be
fair.
true. I mean,
fair.
also Bix she's like in the rebellion at this point. She's just in a different cell. But I think, like, is she going to go on Yavin, like that kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Good
I guess I didn't
question.
really put that together, because the whole time that she's talking about contacting her guy, it's like, I figured he was a buyer of some kind, right? I didn't really realize that. I know, right? I didn't really realize that was the case until until Luthen shows up, right? So
yeah, in episode 1, I was confused about even if the rebellion had even started, and if Diego Luna and Andor was actually part of that cell yet, if he was actually a rebel, but he wasn't. So like putting those 3 episodes again out in front of everybody as like first premiere, I think was very strategical and was very smart.
Yeah,
he's older than I thought he was too. By the way, I don't know if that like based on all the knowledge that we had going into the show of on the director's comments like at Celebration and stuff. Like I really figured that we would get Cassian in the rebellion earlier than this. Yeah, right. But this is not that far before Rogue One. How did he go from having nothing to do with the rebellion to being head of intelligence in less than 5 years?
Well,
nuts.
Luckily, Corey, there's 21 episodes left. So I think that's what's so fun about it, and seeing like how these folks are kind of organizing their own rebellion. Like Cassian, Marva, and Bix are all definitely, they live on Ferrix, they do their thing, but they've all clearly been oppressed to certain levels by the Empire, the corporation, and now are finally kind of uniting to rise up. But then, of course, we get the guy who's been pulled in to all of this, the most loyal, the most lovely, the most speaks basic, which threw me, B2 Emo. This droid, man, what a lovely introduction to a character of him just like riding along, and then the dogs pee on him, and then he rows in.
He does look like a fire hydrant when he like.
He does, and then he speaks to Cassian, and what I love is that I think we got so many specific descriptors about him. Like, in order to lie, he has to recharge because that takes him energy to build up lies.
I love that. He's like, oh, that's 2 lies, so I'm gonna have to recharge again.
That's so fun. And like he holds medicine, like his little band-aids. Like he's just such a great droid.
We get a lot of complex scenes between him and Cassian too, talking about the writing and the stuff. Like a lot of those scenes felt sort of odd. Like it was kind of hard to figure out exactly what they were trying to say. But like, oh God, Wes. Wes just showed us the image of the dog peeing on the droid. Appreciate that. I mean, like the way that the droid talks to Cassian and is like, "Where are you going?" Like, I don't want you to go. Like, I don't know, man. It's setting up, the K2 and Cassian relationship, right? He's always had a affinity for droids, so I love this.
Why are droids so fascinating? I really like think about a single droid character that like you don't like.
Yeah, I think your pet could talk to you. It's like
and for some reason, the stutter makes him more endearing, just like Dio.
Yeah. I really like him. I also like the fact that like Cassian and Marva, they only call him B because Cassian only calls K2SO K. Like he doesn't use the R2. He doesn't use the numbers. He just calls them by their first letter, which I think is honestly more familiar. Huge fan of that. All right, now the dark part. Cyril and Sergeant Musk, sir. So these guys.
Love that guy.
Villains. These guys are
Cyril
fun.
Cyril is the insecure white boy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, he is the teacher. There was homework last night. He's that guy.
Have we had a more hateable villain in live action so far?
Not a more relatable hateable. That's because we all know this guy. We've all met this guy.
Yeah, he's a twat. Like there's no way around it. I hate this guy like so much. Like
He's very
I don't
by the
know.
book. He's very
He is very
structured.
by the book.
That guy
I did
has
have
folds
an-
his underwear, Corey.
That is correct. He
All right.
absolutely folds. That was hilarious that they made him. He's like, "What's up with your uniform? Why does it look like that?" And he's like, "It's mildly tailored."
Yeah.
Like, what a
Piping
tool.
and it's just like it's just so
You know,
good.
I did have an interesting thought. I wonder if there is. Do you guys think there's any chance that they're kind of setting him up for a rebellion arc? Like, of like maybe he's seen the error of his ways, or is he going to lean
Like
harder
a callous
into
kind of thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we said
yeah.
that in the pre
Yeah.
like the pre-show we were doing a couple weeks ago.
I thought it
Yeah,
was
okay.
possible until I saw him at the end of the episode looking into the fire, because I think what I saw a guy who is like, I have been embarrassed. And I think that from what we know, especially, writers write in the times in which they are living, right? Like, a young white guy with a little bit of power that's just been embarrassed. That's a lot. Like that, we all know this guy, and they double down even harder. And I think that if he does have a rebellion arc, I mean, that is very Star Wars. But as of right now, I think he has an enabler, which is the sergeant. I think that the sergeant is always about like, do it, kill them. I believe in you, sir. And he has that voice in his head, which is dangerous. And now he's got a reason to fight back because they have now embarrassed him, killed his men, and now he has almost a like a zealous purpose, I think. And I think we're going to see him get a little more extreme.
Fantastic character. We talked about that briefly. Sergeant Mosk. Super good.
Yeah,
Dude,
what an intro
love
scene.
that guy. His accent is so thick, man. It's
I
so
love
thick,
it,
and it
yeah.
makes the
Yes.
character even better. And how
Yeah.
he ends everything with "sir," like he
Sir.
just.
I
know.
So
I
so
liked
good.
him. Like after Cyril gives us a stupid speech, he's like, "Very inspiring, sir." It's just
Yeah.
like,
He's the
that's
first one to start
so
clapping.
awkward. Oh
It
my
was.
word.
And also,
so awkward.
like when you really break it down, what they're doing, they know they're looking for one suspect, one guy, and they are bringing a dozen
12.
armed men.
I love that. I love
And
how
they're
they.
like,
I love
"Pits
how
our
they
tactics."
blew past that. I love how they blew right past that. They're like, he's like, it's just one guy. How many do you think we need? He's like, 12 at least.
At
It's
least.
just like,
Yeah,
okay.
this guy is the guy that he's definitely just been sitting and watching like mall security cams for 3 years, being like, "Oh, I just want to hit something." Like he's just like waiting for his moment. He's like, "A mission, excellent. I played a lot of Call of Duty when I was in 8th grade. I'm ready to
know.
go." Like,
Everybody hates him. It's very obvious that all his inferiors hate him.
Yep.
And like, I don't know, really, really good storytelling to build this guy up. Also, the actor is freaking killing it. Like
incredible.
he is so believable. The guy puts
Yeah.
so much emotion into his face.
Yeah.
It's really, really incredible. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, I hate this guy. I hope he gets what's coming to him in the show. He better.
He might. I mean,
Anyways,
we're also
I hate
gonna
this
get more
guy.
villains.
This is the
So-
Jeffrey of this show
Joffrey.
from Game of Thrones.
It's Joffrey.
Oh my
Joffrey,
God,
sorry,
Joffrey.
Joffrey from Game of Thrones. Hated
I-
that kid.
I do think though that this is because we've seen there's that ISB officer that's going to be coming in. The woman, I forgot her name. But they did a lot of press interviews together, so I'm wondering if now they're going to be like, okay, Rent-A-Cop Corpo, you now have a rebellion on your hands. You now need to work with the Empire, and now maybe is he going to be like big fish and now or little fish in big pond, like following along and being like, well, I'm in the Empire now. I'm
Yeah.
important, and they're like, shut up. Where'd Cassian go? Like, I wonder if that's going to be
Yeah, I think
that kind of thing.
I think we're gonna get a little bit. This would be a perfect character arc to sort of like we've seen this before in books and stuff. There was a particular Imperial villain that we all really hated in one of the books in the last couple of years. I can't remember who it was.
in
Winston
Resistance
Bratt.
Reborn. What was his
Wasn't
name?
it
Yes.
Winston Bratt or something
Yes.
like
Oh,
that?
yes,
yeah.
Winston
Holy
Bratt. That is
shit.
who I was.
Wow.
I can't believe you guys
Good
remember
pull,
that.
Charles.
Charles, that was amazing.
You guys suck. That is who this guy is. Like I could see him being given a little bit more power, and he thinks he's important, and then he
Yeah.
totally gets taken advantage of, and then the Empire doesn't give a shit about him and just kills him or something. Like I could see that being his character arc. I don't know. We could get a little bit of a Agent Callus arc too, though. I could maybe see that. That would be interesting as well. Like I don't know. He's a complex villain. I like seeing
Mhm.
complex villains that
Yes.
are not so sure of themselves. I mean, we're so used to getting the I am the powerful, everyone obey me like Tarkin, right? We're used to getting that, but we don't really get this middle manager insecurity type of storytelling like usually. So a lot of opportunity here. I'm excited for this, to see what this goes to, especially the way it ended with him just being completely dumbstruck with, you know, how bad he messed up. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
he should have let it go. He should have let it go.
Agreed.
Like, so intense. And then speaking of obviously morally gray, we end with Luthen. Luthen Rail, Stellan Skarsgård coming in like a champ. We all watched the scene with him and Cassian. I thought it was gonna be way earlier in the series. I'm very surprised they gave us an episode 3 scene, but I thought, I mean, he was exactly what that character has to be when they captured Cyril, and he's like, shoot him,
cool.
Just shoot him right now.
I know,
just do
he was
it. Like,
so
he's
cool.
already.
I couldn't tell if he was
God.
playing good cop, bad cop there, or if he was just like, that's actually how he feels. Like, I loved him. Like, he was giving all this advice. He was very much like Beckett to me. Of
Yes,
like,
yeah.
like he even has the damn trench coat, for crying out loud, right? like he's just such a badass. Just like, you know, never carry a comm device. Like, you know,
Rule number
all these little
2.
tips and
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
But he's
loved
also
it.
nice to that guy Cohen. He's also nice to that guy on the bus. Like,
Yeah, he is.
who was also he was a nice little character. Again, a nice little, totally real guy. He's like, we're stuck in traffic. What do you do? You know, like,
Yeah, I
he's not
love
a
that
mean
too,
spirited
because it was
person.
like that first kind of that scene with that weird guy with the little top hat too.
Yeah.
It's just that scene with him. I was just like, why is this here? Like, they used a lot of time on that, and I think it's sort of highlighting how the Empire slowly took over and how it was sort of perceived by the general public. It's just, all right, can you believe this? Now we're having to pay these damn parking fines. Like,
Yep.
you know, and like it starts with that, and then it gets just slowly more and more oppressive.
Mhm.
That was cool. That was neat
Yeah.
to sort of like show it made you understand what the Empire's role is on this planet. Like, they're not totally
Yeah.
there yet. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like Corellia, where the Empire is pretty much in charge, right? Or it's not like, you know, the planets that we've seen in Mandalorian, where the Empire is very strong presence, right? Like,
No,
they're just
an
not.
irritant.
Yes, exactly. Which is very interesting to give us all that context.
Yeah, because like when they land for the big assault, all the workers are like, "What the hell are they doing? Like, they don't come here." And I think
Yeah.
and Luthen, I think, gets that vibe. Like, okay, these are still good people. I don't necessarily have to watch my back too much, but I also love with Luthen that he's like, okay, this place is gonna rise up, and Cassian is from here. I don't know how much he knew about Cassian beforehand. Obviously, he knew a lot about his past and things, but now that we found out how much that piece was worth, I think this is my big moment for Luthen of realizing who he is, how much he's dedicated to the cause. And so I would say, like, we know that piece was worth 40,000 credits, and he was like,
Yeah.
dude, if you come with me, just leave it. Who cares? Like, the fact that Cassian is worth that to the rebellion as a wild card, I'm like, dang, you are like, Luthen is all in on Cassian as a character, and I think that made me realize that either he's a great judge of character overall, or he's really desperate. I think both those are really interesting.
Yeah, it was towards the end of that of episode 3 that we finally figured out what that device was and how we got it. And it took that long for us to figure out, you know, what the device was, who he was selling it to, and then why it's so important. And then just having that whole thing build up to they don't even sell it. It just gets ruined in that whole thing.
Amazing.
So it was
Have you guys?
a great
Have
piece
you
of
guys? Speaking
storytelling.
of this, I'm glad you brought this up. I hate to be the guy that brings this up. Do you know about the Easter egg of this device? Have you guys
Oh,
seen
I
this?
do, Corey, but please tell us about it.
Oh
I
my
know where
God.
it's from.
The only Star Wars Explained, Alex Damon. I'm not sure if he knew this off the top of his head, or if he figured this out. Like, but he has a YouTube short that explains what this thing is, and the only reference to a star path in Star Wars is from the Errant Venture, which is the Star Destroyer that Booster Tarek converted into like a pleasure barge. Booster Tarek is the father of Mirax, who is the wife of none other than our favorite Corran Horn from iJedi. So, like,
Yep. This is
we
literally
recently
mentioned in iJedi.
it's mentioned in iJedi as being like the navigational system for that Star Destroyer. And so in the last couple, we've gotten references to freaking his father. What's his name? Halcyon. or grandfather, whatever.
Oh,
his name
Corin's,
is.
yeah,
He
something like
gets his
that.
Yeah.
grandfather, yeah.
Whatever. We got reference to that. We got reference to Corin. We got reference to the Air Adventure, and now we have reference to the damn like navigational system for the Air Adventure. Oh, why are we gonna get Cornhorn in live action? Please God, no. But
Oh,
what
it's
a
incredible.
pool! What a freaking pool, man! Like
Yeah.
to use this device. I wonder what made them decide to do that. That is very, very interesting.
You never know. I
Was it destroyed, by the way, in the scene?
yeah,
I'm
they
not
didn't.
sure if
They
it-
didn't go back for it.
They didn't
I
go
mean,
back for it. I know they don't have it, but I don't know
Yeah,
if it's
we didn't see it
explicitly shown that
broken.
it gets broken. So,
Yeah,
oh
But-
man,
it's such a cool moment. And then of course, obviously, they get out and he takes him away, and that mirror of Marva taking him away from one destructive place to now Luthen taking him away to another place. I think it was a perfect framing device and a perfect way to end it, because it is literally like, okay, now we got all the info about the ensemble we need. We know exactly where Cassian is. And now next week, we're basically starting a new show. Now we're going to go meet the rebellion leaders. And I want to go over some of our favorite moments here in a second, but I do want to tease that I believe Tony Gilroy said in an interview a while back, he's like, after episode 4, there's going to be people tweeting about how much they love Mon Mothma. So I assumed we were getting her next episode, but it should be pretty big, which is very exciting. So I guess now I want to ask you guys, before we get into some of our favorite moments, any kind of questionable moments we want to discuss, or kind of, I know he said like, oh, we want to get into something, like what are some things that we really want to kind of digest a little further that we haven't touched on before we just kind of rattle off what stuff we loved.
Maybe this show.
Want to talk about
I
Tim?
know. Yeah.
I mean, I
we should
know
briefly talk about Tim.
from a plot standpoint and maybe even a character development standpoint, I get why they did this, but I did think that Tim
Tell
was
the audio
very-
listeners what we're doing here.
Okay, we're looking at the scene where there is a blaster bolt, a searing blaster bolt headed straight for Tim's wide open chest as he charges to rescue Bix. Now, this was right after he upset Bix by turning in Cassian, and of course that was a bad thing to do. And he was trying to redeem himself, I'm sure, or maybe it was just showing that, hey, this is actually a good dude and he made a mistake. All those things probably apply, but man, that seemed dumb to just run. I mean, he literally had his arms behind him as he was like running chest out at them with a bunch of guns and stuff. And I was just like,
Who
man, don't
are
do that.
actively telling him that they're going to shoot him if he
I was
doesn't.
like, don't do that, man. And then he got shot. And I was like, well, to be honest with you, I felt the worst for Tim on our team, Tim Guthrie. Because I
You got that
remember,
name?
for some reason, I remember vividly when we found out there's a character named Tim, and he put something in Slack, and he was like, yeah, like for all the Tims or something like that. And then Tim,
now he's a
Tim
That
is
ain't it.
ousted.
He's just kind of a shitty character, and he immediately gets killed. So
Yeah.
I know. Is there
Two
is there
M's.
any? Wait, there was an interesting, a little bit of a discussion in our team about whether or not Tim's actions were justified, which is
Yeah.
a little bit controversial, I feel like. So that's fun to discuss. Maybe we should briefly
Yeah.
touch on that, because we were certainly meant to understand as the viewer that Tim's shitty, right? He drinks
Mhm.
too much. He makes dumb decisions, right? He's
Mhm.
jealous, right? Is there any redeemable quality to his
Let's look
actions?
at what he did. I think this is a tricky conversation,
Mhm.
but if you can use the whole certain point of view thing. He turned in a guy for murder, double murder. I mean, that in and of itself is not the wrong
Mhm.
thing to do. Like
Right.
he did murder people. They weren't
He did.
good people, but you can't just murder people.
Well, also, did they
Yeah.
say in connection with 2 murders on the news bulletin, or they just
Yeah,
said a
I think
Canary
they
Man?
did. No, they said
I'm
in
not
connection
sure.
with
That.
2 murders. I'm pretty sure that was
Interesting.
reference. Yeah,
Not
yeah,
sure.
that's a good point. And his quote unquote girlfriend, I guess we don't really know their relationship status.
Neither does
is,
Tim,
they,
frankly.
did, they didn't
Yeah,
see us.
yeah,
We won't have to worry about it ever again
Right. Oh God.
because he's dead, Corey.
Tim doesn't. Tim, as far as he can tell, is his girlfriend is being kind of sketchy and is really worried, and she has this friend that is wanted for murder, and like maybe he feels like he's trying to protect her or something. Maybe I mean we're meant to sort of understand that it looks like jealousy.
Yeah.
right, I think.
That's
Yeah.
what I
But, like,
felt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
maybe
so
it's not pure jealousy. Maybe his motives are somewhat pure. I don't know.
No,
I-
jealousy.
for the Yeah, I think from the reading that we get, if Tim had it all talked to her about, like, is Cassian in trouble? Maybe you shouldn't be around that guy. The only time he ever thinks about because he doesn't even go call the cops when he sees the bulletin. He doesn't. He waits until he's drinking at the bar, waits until he sees them talking a little close.
Yeah.
And that is the only time when he's like, you know what? If I call the cops, they'll come get rid of this guy, and then I'll get to be with my girlfriend.
Yeah,
And
then
I
he
think that's
immediately
the only
sleeps
reason
with
he
her.
does.
All right, that's
Yeah.
pretty hard to.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Ferrex gives the vibe of like everyone on this planet is like, keep your head down. We all stick together. No one talks to the cops. They don't bug us. Like there's that understanding. And when they start to go after Marva and like their own people, that's when things go off. And I feel like with Tim, he's been on that side of like, I don't talk to the corpos. I don't do anything until he sees Cassian talking to his girlfriend. Also, by the way, just having a conversation. Then he's like, nah, I got to do it. But I will say, on the flip side, I do think that Tim doesn't fully redeem himself, but I do think that he has a good moment of like charging at those as the cops at the end. Because I think that on the outside, we're like, dude, there's guns. They're pointing at you. What are you doing? He is also seeing like the woman that he does love, or at least really like is sitting handcuffed to a wall with blood on the side of her head. And I'd like to think that any of us, if you walked in on like your wife or your girlfriend or your partner of any kind was bleeding because someone was beating on her, not a lot of logic. There'd probably be like, I'm gonna stop. What the hell? Stop it! Like.
Sure.
Running at them. I think that he's just going on instinct there to actually protect.
But we all know that you're not
Johnny
truly redeemed in Star Wars unless you die.
That's very true. That's very true.
That's right. I also appreciate that the way that scene kind of played out, right? Of like that other cop, I guess he was like the kind of the superior or whatever, immediately took that guy's rifle and was like, "You're done. You're done." That was a bad freaking call. Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
we're not going to tell anyone about it, but that was still bad. Like,
exactly. Like, blue protects blue, but also, what the hell is wrong with you? You just killed that guey. Like,
but then that guy was redeemed because he then died, based on Charles's logic, right?
Also very.
Vlad, the thing was so funny to me for some reason. Like he just kept putting more into the throttle. Like, dude, just set the thing back down. Like,
I know.
You're not getting out.
Also that guy, like, what's his name again? The mechanic dude. What's his name? Brasso. Like, I don't know. That kind of took me aback a little bit that he just immediately was like, I'm going to sabotage their ship. I guess the pots banging or whatever is like. I guess that means, I guess hey, everyone, these are bad guys. These are bad guys. Everybody stick together, right?
That was the Star Wars equivalent of Brasso put a boot on that dude's car and he tried to drive it out of there.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, then so that kind of leads me into like just kind of some favorite moments. That whole, I think, end of episode 3 for me, from almost, I would say after the speeder chase, I guess, just kind of like those final moments of seeing the characters, kind of like the ashes of the moment, kind of sitting there, and then the mirrored scene, and just kind of launching us into the next week. I think it was one of the strongest endings of any episode we've gotten of anything. I thought it was just the music swelling, the silent moments with the characters kind of really allowing ourselves to feel the weight of what happened. Like, we see like Bix get her shackles off, but she's like still hurt, and she tries to get to Tim, but they're like, no, we gotta go. You don't have time to mourn. We gotta go.
Yeah.
And like, just that, it ends on this like such a downer moment, but it's so intense. Like, it just breaks your heart. So that was probably one of my most impressive moments.
Definitely, I don't know, like kind of coming back around to like people were kind of complaining about how slow the first episodes were and that sort of thing. Like, I think it made this final climax in episode 3 feel like massive. Like, it made it feel like like a mid-season finale or something, like like, I mean, it just had a lot of weights, like the way that the end of this ship is so badass, by the way.
I want that Lego. I want
Sorry,
Luthen's ship.
Wes just showed us a picture of Luthen's ship at the end, which the way the like the freaking wings like fold up, that was the most badass thing I've ever seen. I want that.
When he
It's so
whistles
cool.
at it.
Yeah, he whistles
And
to his
freaking
ship
whistles
to
at it.
start. I've never seen that.
God, it was so badass. I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah. I mean, just the weight of episode 3 felt massive. It felt like the end of like season 1 of Mandalorian, like truly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really excited for the way the show is going to progress. I feel like there's just so much to go for. Are there any? I guess is there anything you didn't like about the show? We try to stay positive, but there were a couple tiny things that pulled me out. There was a CGI shot of a ship in the very beginning. I think it was when Cassian took off from that planet where he killed those 2 guys.
Mhm.
It looked really bad. And I don't know. I feel like my biggest complaints about CGI lately have been ships taking off for some reason.
I thought
Hard to do, I guess.
them on the speeder looked a little off.
Them and the speeder might have been the most
Okay.
thing if I'm stretching, but to the point of did it take me out? I didn't have a single moment on that. But if it's like,
Yeah. Nothing took me out personally. Yeah, I thought
that one took me out. At the very beginning, I audibly said, "All right, that CGI was bad," and then I got back in. But
yeah,
it seems like for some reason they're having trouble with ships with the shows. I guess they must just be really, really challenging to produce. Is this are we going to see the
Yeah.
ship take off?
he's got to run. I also
Look at that. This
I
looks
think that looks
weird.
fine to be
I think
honest.
that looks fine to
It
me.
It looks weird. It looks weird. Whatever. Anyway, it looks like
Y'all are wrong. It looks weird.
Also, that kind of looks like it looks like a K-wing with a
Those are Y-wing engines, doesn't it?
Looks like
yeah, I was
Y-wing,
gonna say,
yeah.
but the cockpit looks like isn't it called a K-wing? I'm pretty sure it's like a Legends ship or something like that. But anyway,
I believe it.
yeah, pick me out. Anything else kind of bother you guys about the show at all?
Honestly, no.
No.
Yeah,
I love
Like,
it.
legit, no.
I think me either.
It's incredible. Like
It was so
was just-
good.
the only thing that bothered me, this took me out. As I was watching the second episode, I was like, God, are all other shows bad? Is that like I literally had a moment where I'm like, I don't think so, but it made me start to rethink all the other shows because I'm like, the quality was just so high of like the acting, the writing, the filmmaking of what we've been talking about. I'm just like, oh my God. Like I got
Yeah.
outside of myself worried for the future of Star Wars television in like a
Right.
good way. Cause I'm like, oh, my bar
Yeah.
has now risen, which I think is what you always want to do. So
Yeah.
that's about what I
Yeah.
had.
Yeah,
I
I think
did-
it's kind of like. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Wes.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's kind of like rating the TV shows is kind of like the way we review books a little bit. Like there's different levels of like quality, and it seems like there's not. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but there are a few shows in television history that you can feel like kind of reach that masterpiece level of quality.
Yeah.
Like and some of the famous shows like Game of Thrones is up
Yep.
there as
Breaking
being
Bad,
budget. Breaking Bad, like
Yeah.
I think Kenobi is very, very close to that. Like, but this is just, I mean,
This is there right now for me.
you're right. I mean, it does make Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and things like that sort of feel like they're in this weird lesser tier a little bit.
Yeah. Which I didn't
Which
see
is-
before.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Me either. I mean, we are looking at all these shows through rose-colored glasses because we're
Mhm,
so
for sure.
happy just to have live action Star Wars. But like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know,
recency
man, this-
bias is real too.
it is, it is, it
But
is. But
oof. Oof.
man, this first 3 episodes were hella good. Hella good. Have you seen what is the criticism online, man? I haven't seen anything negative.
It's been really good. The only stuff I've seen has been like there's not enough like Easter eggs like Mando stuff.
Oh yeah,
Which is like
yeah, I heard that. I saw that.
Shut
I actually
up.
looked that up. Well, I looked that up last night. I googled like Andor Easter eggs, and like I couldn't find a list that had more than like 6 on them. There's
Yeah.
not very many Easter eggs at all, which is
yeah, it's just
maybe
a good show.
good, maybe a
Could be a
good,
good
thing,
thing.
actually. Yeah,
yeah.
Just
Just
say
to-
it makes the entry point.
Just to highlight what Obi-Wan had said in the chat, did you guys notice the stair droid that came by to look up against that bus?
I loved the stair
Did
droid.
you see the
I
stair
did not
droid?
notice it.
Oh
He was
yeah,
just
I noticed
stairs.
I
How
noticed this.
amazing!
Sorry to always bring it back to Futurama because I just love that show, and they also have lots of different robots and stuff in that show. There's a droid that comes out like right at a baseball game, and Bender is complaining about how all the droids are basically slaves in Futurama, and a droid comes out because he smashes a beer bottle in anger. He's like, "Oh, the droids are all slaves!" Smashes a beer bottle, and this little hatch open, and a droid comes out and he sweeps with the beer bottle and goes back in the hole. And that's what this guy is. Like this is his one job. He's like,
Oh, yeah,
what
I
is
will
my
say-
purpose?
Yeah.
You're stairs,
butter.
bro. You're just stairs.
Stairs.
Yeah, I have seen people say online, that if it's boring and slow, but I think that like we
Get
said
outta
earlier,
here.
slow is not
Get
a
outta
Slow
here.
but not boring.
because I would say
a little slow but not boring.
this is not a show where I would say like second screen it, like have your phone out and scrolling while you're watching, like then yeah, watch a TV show. Like put your phone down, turn the lights off, get a slightly bigger TV than an iPad, and just like have a good time. So. But next week we do get Mon Mothma.
Dude,
I'm
the
excited
TV I'm
to
watching,
see-
I'm sorry, the TV I'm watching this on is so bad. The volume is like 100 scale. You can go all the way up to 100,
Yeah.
but if you go over than 55, all the plastic vibrates with the sound.
Oh my
so anytime there's any
God.
bass, it's like like into the freaking. It's awful, dude.
Dude, I literally
I-
wore my wireless headphones that I use for gaming to watch it. I put my headphones
my
on my
God.
ears and just watched it. So
I would probably
Look at-
have a
look at
better
something good.
experience if I did watch it on my iPad Mini that I have sitting here.
we got to get that for you next time.
Uh,
All right, so we're right up. Gosh, oh god, we go on these things for forever. But any final thoughts before we get on out of here? I mean, next week it's kind of a whole new show, almost like we've
good.
we've actually seen so much in the trailers that wasn't shown, which is the opposite of Star Wars television, right? We usually just see the first episode, all the Coruscant stuff, all the Mon Mothma stuff. That's all still coming. So
Yeah.
We have a lot
I'm
to go.
stoked.
I appreciate that we're going into this knowing there's going to be more than one season too, because like
Yes.
that allows you to, I don't know, like with Obi-Wan, you know, we were constantly like, how are they going to conclude this? There's so many loose ends.
Mhm.
Like, you know, you're going in the last episode with all these loose ends, right? With this, it's a little easier to kind of just sit back and relax. Like, this is season 1. Like, maybe we'll be feeling like that when season 2 rolls around, but like, I don't know. It feels nice to be able to just sit
Oh,
back and kind of
yeah.
enjoy the ride. It doesn't all
Yeah.
have to conclude, you know?
Yeah, Brandon, the Senate. We're gonna get to see the Senate.
Senate!
What they
Oh my
do.
God.
Forgot
That's a
about
good
that.
point. I forgot about
That'd be so
that. Yeah,
great.
this scale of this show is gonna feel different. Like right now, it feels similar to other Star Wars shows. I'll say, like we're on one planet, things are not really moving very quickly. But yeah, I guess we are gonna get the galactic conflict a little bit more in this. It's gonna be rad.
Yep. We're gonna see Revolution, baby. I'm gonna watch it again today. It's gonna be great.
Oh, the Hammer guy. We didn't talk about the
Hey, oh,
Hammer
yeah.
guy.
MVP.
He was
Amazing.
great. I love
And
that
then-
guy.
and
Really good.
There was a moment where the ringing of his hammers fed into the score of the scene.
Yeah,
And I'm
that
like,
was
Nicholas
beautiful.
Patel. Also, if you guys are skipping the intros, listeners, on these, don't, because the theme song for every episode is slightly different based on the context of the episode. Nicholas Patel composed 12 individual intro themes. So always
Wow.
listen, because it'll give you something
Yeah.
new. Oh my god, there's gonna be some folks on our team. I know they're gonna be getting the vinyl of this one. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I love this show. I love talking about it. I can't wait to do it again. Next weekend we will see you guys then. But for now, that will do it for this week's episode of Bounty Hunt. Keep your eyes out for our next hunt when we'll be diving into episode 4 of Andor. Again, only one episode next week. A special thank you to Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, Robert Thomas, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and James T, Elizabeth Cloutier, Ashley Ingalls, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command. Go ahead and tell us all your thoughts about Andor in our Discord community at utini.com/discord, and follow our main show on Twitter at Living Force Pod, and all of us for all things Star Wars. I'm at Eric Eilerson, Corey is at Corey M. Helton, Charles is at C. Henkel, and Wes is at Boss Wes. Until next time, this is what reckoning sounds like, baby.